I wanted to introduce our next presenter. Beth, I consider a friend of mine. She's also my boss at the hospital. But more than anything else, Beth is a really accomplished professional. She's had quite an illustrious career and history. And one of the things that I hear a lot about from people is I'm heading towards retirement, or I am going to retire, or I just retired, and I feel like I have to get back into doing something again. Or conversely, we get people who say that I don't want to do anything again. Like when I'm retired, I want to be done, and I never want to do law enforcement or firefighting again. I just want to get away from this stuff. But then a month, 2 months after you leave, you start to feel this itch, and depending on the level of supervision that you had within your agency that you left, how do you adjust to civilian life again? And can you? Is it easy to do? I mean, Beth struggled with all of these things, and I'm sure that she'll tell you that she failed retirement a few times, but I think that she found purpose, and so she has graciously allowed us to get a glimpse into her life of years of service in the DEA, a full career. And Beth, I just am looking forward to hearing and you sharing with everybody your history and your work career and all of this stuff that led you to where you are now, please. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much. And everyone, thank you so much for allowing me to spend some time with you today. It's truly an honor to visit with heroes like yourselves and to share my story. You know, I don't have a PowerPoint presentation for you because I'm not teaching anything. I just wanted to share my story in the hopes that you might grab a piece of information or an experience that might help you. And I'll share my experiences with you, and hopefully we can have a conversation about it. As Dara said, I've had a pretty long career. I'm in year 40 now, almost 40 years in law enforcement or in some form of being a first responder. And I started, and I'm going to tell you a lot of my journey because it's really relevant to the challenges I had when it came my time to retire. And I think Dara has an incredible sense of humor because he knows that I have failed at retirement multiple times. And Dara is a fabulous counselor, and he often puts you in difficult situations where you have to talk about your failures so that you can become stronger in the future. And so I view this opportunity to meet with you as part of my therapy session with Dara, and I am sharing my challenges in hopes that you won't face the same ones I did, and that I'll get stronger when it's my time to completely retire. So my background is I came from a very small town in Georgia, really rural, little. We had about 70,000 people, and I went to a small all-girls school, and I became an agent about 2 weeks after I graduated from college. So I'd been living in a sorority house with 50 girls, and 2 weeks later, I'm heading off to DEA Academy way down in Glencoe, Georgia. That shows you how long it's been since I've been on the job. And I went through the academy, and my first duty station back in 1984 was Las Vegas, Nevada. And that was quite a culture shock for me. And I had lived the traditional Southern girl lifestyle. You know, my family, my sisters had all gotten married right out of college and started their families, or they were school teachers and things like that. And I was breaking that mold. And I didn't realize the ramifications that would have for me throughout the rest of my life, that I was doing something different. And when I came out of agent school, I had gone through all these different experiences about learning how to do undercover work and, you know, working with a bunch of really macho guys. There were only 2 girls in my agent's class, and it was just an experience that I had never could have imagined before. And right before I went to Vegas, I went back to see my sorority sisters, and I already realized that I was different than they were, that I already started to begin thinking differently, and I was acting differently. I carried a gun now, where when they knew me 6 months before, I didn't. And I already felt like I was just one off from them. And I went to Las Vegas, and incredible experiences there. But that's when Kiki Camarena got killed down in Mexico, when my first couple months in Las Vegas. And I saw the impact that had on so many of my partners at the time. Vegas was a small office, and it didn't really register because I didn't know Kiki, but I went through it with them. I saw them suffering in a very unique way. And then a couple of months after that, my partner from Atlanta, which was my first duty station before I went to Vegas, I hired on in the Atlanta office. My partner there, I'd been in agent school with him. We worked a little bit together before I went to Las Vegas, and he got killed in a shootout. And I could not believe that I knew somebody that had been killed in a law enforcement shootout. Excuse me. That was so foreign to concept for me, growing up in that small rural town where I'd never seen a fight. I'd never seen a gun before I joined DEA. I'd never seen drugs before I joined DEA. And now to have somebody that I cared about killed, my transformation journey started way back then, knowing that I was different. And I got a real sense of purpose. I was mad that Kiki got killed by these drug traffickers. I was mad that my friend that we had gone through agent school together, and he was really important to me, had gotten killed by this dope dealer. And that was the start of my transformation journey. And then going through my experiences, I had a lot of undercover operations in Las Vegas. And then I moved to Los Angeles, and that was even bigger. One of my dear friends was killed in a shootout. It was a famous shootout in Los Angeles. It was with a group of people that were, moving a lot of drugs, and it killed 2 agents. And it was a rolling shootout through Pasadena. And again, I'm 23 years old, and I already have 2 of my friends have been killed by drug traffickers. And I tried to share that with my friends and family that were outside law enforcement. And I had been told before that you're not going to be able to transfer experiences with them, and they're not going to get the challenges that you have. And I didn't appreciate that until I tried to tell them about, Ray getting killed in Atlanta, and Paul getting killed in LA, and Kiki Camarena. And they would go, "Oh, that's really interesting. Sorry about that." But they didn't realize it was chipping away at my innocent core. My ability to relate to people in society was changing. Being in law enforcement or a firefighter or corrections, what a noble profession. We are the line between good and evil. And I never felt that to become so real until my friends got killed, until I got in dangerous situations with LAPD in Los Angeles. I saw that what we were doing as a team was keeping evil away from children, away from the rest of the society. And nobody truly appreciated the personal sacrifices that we were making. But you know what? It was the mission. It was the noble cause. And so I am knee deep now into law enforcement. I have found camaraderie with the members of my squad like nowhere else, because nobody gets me now. My family didn't get me. My sorority sisters didn't get me. And I didn't have friends outside of law enforcement because I'm still single at the time. And my whole world is running with the guys that I work with, because we didn't have to explain each other. We all knew what we were feeling, but we didn't have to talk about it. And that's where I learned to shut down emotions. That was the beginning of shutting down emotions, when nobody else would get it. And fortunately, I met a really terrific agent in Los Angeles, and he and I ended up getting married. And that really helped me, because now I could come home and share stories with somebody that really got me. And he was really an amazing man. He was a combat vet from Vietnam. He was a DEA agent. He had been in more shootouts than I could even imagine. He was just an agent's agent. He was a boss's boss. He was a leader of men. He was my rock. He was my pillar. And so he guided me through my career until shortly after we got married, he had a massive heart attack. And that rocked me, because here's my pillar and the one person in the world outside my squad that gets me. And so he recovered from that first heart attack, and we got moved down to Miami where he was a supervisor. And then I was just a street agent at the time, but it was so nice to come home to somebody I could talk to. And I realize what a blessing that was, because I had an outlet outside of my group that I could share things with. And then unfortunately, my husband had another massive heart attack at the age of 50. And I was in my early 30s. So he was a little bit older than I was. And he had to retire abruptly. And his whole identity prior to our marriage had been wrapped up into being a special agent and to being that guy that was the leader of men and that were saying, come on, follow me, that worked the best cases. And overnight, he's a civilian. And I watched his struggle going from being this mountain of a man, a legend at DEA, to now he's just a mere mortal. He's no longer carrying a gun. He's no longer that guy. But we were in the perfect situation, because he still lived vicariously through me as I started going into leadership roles. And we started sharing that relationship in a different way. He would ask me how my day went. I would tell him what I was struggling with, and he could speak to it, but that kept him going. And he told me that more than once, that because of his heart attack, if we had not been married, he probably wouldn't have been alive that day, because that's who he was. That was his life. And so that started a new journey for me. I had to start seeing, what is life like outside of DEA? And my husband began living that journey for me. He began, showing me what it was like outside of DEA and how you build a new career. And he got involved in the organization. He was one of the people that created Skynark. And he started feeding into that and growing that. But he was doing a lot of office work, but he was still living vicariously through me and my drug enforcement career. And then I ended up going to Washington and then Houston. And then fortunately, I got promoted. It was an amazing journey that I had through those positions. And I became the special agent in charge here at DEA in Phoenix. And I would not have been successful if it had not been for the support and the encouragement of my husband going through that journey. But I could tell that he was preparing me, because I was getting closer and closer to retirement. He was preparing me, and I didn't know it, for my retirement. He made me join a women's golf group, and I didn't even play golf, but he was encouraging me to do it, saying, you need to make friends outside of DEA. You need to have a network outside of DEA. I was like, no, those women don't get me. All they talk about is their kids, their grandkids, and what's going on at this book club and that book club. And I said, I don't want to do that. I don't have anything in common with them. And he kept encouraging me, and as I always did, I followed his lead, and I tried to join these clubs. And I was right. I was the odd person out. They always wanted to, you have your gun with you today, tell us a story today, and I just wanted to be a person. I just wanted to be another lady trying to learn to play golf. But fortunately, with perseverance and my husband's encouragement, I started to build a little network outside of DEA, which I had never done before, because I liked my cocoon, and my husband and I didn't have any kids. And so it was my work cocoon and my home cocoon. And I felt safe in those two places. But what I realized is, by him encouraging me to get out of my comfort zone and build a community of girlfriends, I did realize that he was trying to help me with that difficult transition of going from being in a one-of-a-kind club, a club that you're willing to risk your life for people you don't even know. And you're that line between good and evil, as I mentioned, to being more assimilated into society. And what was shocking to me is I was the odd one. They weren't odd. Those women are what is typical. It's traditional. It was what my sisters were like. And I had to start figuring out how to get connected with them. And I was given the opportunity for another position outside of DEA. And I knew that my husband's health condition was changing. And I was being given an opportunity to probably promote into a really higher level position. It would have been a tremendous honor for me to go back to DEA, to be DEA headquarters. But you know what? I realized that it was not about me anymore, that my husband was nearing the end of his journey. He wasn't there yet, but he was nearing the end, and he was happy here in Arizona. And I made the decision to not continue on in my DEA career and to retire. And so I applied, and I was fortunately selected to become the HIDA director for here in Arizona. And that was going to free me up. It was going to make it less stressful. It was more of an administrative job. I was going to administer a grant, and I was going to support federal, state, and local law enforcement task forces. And my job was much less stressful than it was, and it'd be more normal. It would be a 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 job. And I would be able to have the opportunity to spend more time with my husband and to try to golf more with these new lady friends that I was trying to develop with a very bad golf game, which brought a lot of humor to them. And they've quit asking me now about, dope deals and who did I arrest and what had I done in my career and had I shot anybody, questions that you and I would, recoil and go, you don't ask that question, but they didn't know. So I'm getting accustomed to them and they're getting accustomed to me. And so I joined HIDA reluctantly because I got offered the job in October and I wasn't going to leave until the end of December. And I tried to back up a couple of times because I started with DEA when I was 21. I had been with them for 27 years. And I grew up in DEA. My partners in Vegas were like my dad. They taught me things. And my partners in LA, they were much more experienced. I learned life through their eyes, and I learned life through my husband's eyes. I had spent more time in law enforcement than I did outside of law enforcement, and I got scared. So my husband, being the smart man and understanding me the way he did, he bought me a puppy. He said, if you retire from DEA, you can keep your puppy. And so he gave me this dog in November because he knew I was backing up. And so he kept asking, saying, because I said, I don't know if I'm ready to retire. I sort of like what I still do. And maybe I can talk the administrator into letting me stay here. And he goes, you don't retire. I'm taking the puppy back. And if anybody that knows me knows that I love dogs. And that encouraged me not to fail my first time in retirement. And so I did join HIDA as the executive director. And oh my gosh, what a transition that was. I went from being one of the federal special agent in charge here in Arizona. I mean, I walked around with the FBI SAC, the ISAC, and I got involved in an incredible community with the chiefs and sheriffs, and they just embraced me as the SAC. And when you're the SAC, you walk in and everybody's like, oh my gosh, here's the SAC. And I'm looking around on my shoulder going, who is the SAC? And I'm like, oh God, that's me. But it was cool. I mean, you had a lot of authority. You had the ability to impact so many people's lives within your own department. So now I'm not out on the street saving lives. I'm able to do good for the people that work for me. And I got to tell you, that's just about as big a high and adrenaline push as it was going out on a dope deal and kicking a door. I love supporting the agents that work for me. And that fed me every single day. And I just was all that when I was with DEA, and I'm, able to take care of my husband better. I'm taking care of my agents better. And that was just so cool. And now I'm the HIDA director. And I got to tell you, the most humbling experience that I had with all the chiefs and sheriffs that I used to work for, now they're my bosses. And that is crazy. The guy that was my assistant special agent in charge is now my boss. And I'm like, holy mackerel. And when I was an agent with DEA, I did a lot of undercover work for the Air Force, working with their CID and their criminal investigative division and things like that. And when you're a federal agent and you badge your way onto the the military base, they sort of like salute you and come on in and all that kind of stuff, no questions asked. My first week on the job as a HIDA director, I had to go on to the Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. And so I drive up and I'm like, oh crap, I don't have any credentials anymore because they're retiring them and I don't have a badge with me and I don't have a gun with me. I got a little HIDA ID that says Executive Director HIDA. And I'm like, okay, let's see what this does. The guy won't let me in. He's like, sorry, lady, you're not getting in. And before it was like, welcome aboard, SAC. Come on in, SAC Kempshall, you're in. And now I'm humbled. I am working for the people that used to be my partners. I don't have a badge. I don't have a gun. And this brand new Air Force guy is not letting me on to Davis-Monthan Air Force Base. Talk about being humble, because I have to, the line's backing up behind me. I have to pull off to the side and call the guy that used to work for it and be my subordinate and say, can you come please let me in and vouch for me? Humbled. And I went, if this is what retirement's going to be like, this stinks. I don't know if I like this at all. And I had to figure out, how am I going to make this something that I can find fulfillment at? I said, I can't just be an admin person. I've really got to make HIDA relevant. And so I set about that. It was for to make HIDA better, but there's my drive to support other people and myself. I built an Intel center. I built a training center. I put them in a new office. I was doing everything I could think of to support this task force that had never been done before, so that I could be fulfilled. It was all about me, right? I like to say I was helping others, and I did, but I had a longing inside of my heart to support other people and to make myself feel valued and relevant. And so I had to build things. I had to create things. And I realized that's my leadership style. I'm a builder. I'm a fixer. And it's one, I want to make it better, but two, it fixes me. And then I did that job for about 4.5 years. And then I was given an opportunity. Somebody called me and said, hey, are you thinking about retiring from HIDA? Because we have a job that you might be interested in. And I'm like, what are you talking about? And this Banner's like, say, call Banner, they're looking for a position and we think you might be right for it. And I'm like, I don't know nothing about hospital. I don't know anything about security. I don't know about that. And my husband, again, God bless him, said, you will do that. That's something you need to do. You need to try this. And I'm like, I don't think so. I'm content at my little 9-to-5 job, and I'm not going to do that now. I built something here, HIDA's something. We have a training center and people come and we teach them how to do drug law enforcement. I'm making a difference. And he goes, you're always going to wonder if you could have made it in the private sector. And I think you need to go do this. So I went through these interviews, like 10 interviews for this job, going, well, I don't really care because I don't really want to do it. I sort of like where I am. And so lo and behold, they offered me the job at the end of all these interviews. And I was like, I don't want to do this. This is like DEA headquarters. It's going to be a hard job. I don't want to do it. And I said, I don't have anybody reporting to me now. I'm making a difference. This is good. And he goes, no, you're always going to wonder. So again, following my husband's lead, and you see what an influence he had in my life, I do it. And the first year of that job was terrible. I wanted to quit every day. I was like, this is too mucked up. There is no way I can do this. He goes, this is your sense of purpose. This is your mission. You're a fixer. You need to go fix this. Healthcare is dangerous. People get hurt every day. You need to do something about this. And I'm like, nope, not my mission. I'm done. I don't have it in me. I don't have I'm sort of liking being a little bit more like normal people. And he's like, you got to go do it. So I did it. And during the first year, my husband and I decided, okay, this is going to be a short-lived job because it's really taxing and it's really, really hard. And we bought our retirement home. We bought our property, and we were going to start building on that property. And we were going to have a house on a golf course. And my sister and her husband, who is my best friend in the world, my sister's not her husband. My sister is my best friend in the world. And they were moving right down the street. And I was like, this is the plan. we're going to build this property. When it's finished, I'm going to retire and life is going to be good because my sister's going to be right down the street. And I've done a step down from DEA. I went from being this powerful DEA agent administratively. I was on the career board. I could promote people. I supported my agents, to a more administrative job, which was a step down job. I'm in this private sector job, which stinks, as working me way too hard, and I don't have the energy anymore, and I want to get out. This is perfect. So my husband and I made the decision the day after my sister and her husband made the decision to buy their property. We bought our property, and that was on a Sunday, and my husband died on a Thursday, 4 days later. Talk about having a plan for retirement, and in an instant, it's gone. Because I saw my purpose. Because he was getting older, I was going to take care of him. I was going to live right down the street from my sister, and life was going to be good. And I saw it. I could visualize it. I knew what it was going to be. I had stepped down just like I had planned, from being that at DEA to, building a great HIDA program, to understanding the private sector is not for me, that it was really hard and this was really messed up. And I had a plan, and the plan's gone, and my life is shattered. I had absolutely no children. My mom had died 2 years earlier, who was my rock. Now my husband just passed away. I was lost, and I didn't know what to do. And so I had to lean on my husband. What did he teach me? How did I learn to survive the first time I retired from DEA? And this is what I want you to take away from my story. You have to have a plan, and you have to build your plan before you retire, and know that that plan can change. The planning makes so much sense to me, because when I look back, when I was a group supervisor, and we did an operational plan to do a dope deal, and we worked out of Fort Lauderdale, and the dope deals were usually in Miami, all the way down, I would rehearse, because I'm the supervisor. People's lives depend on me. I have to build a plan, and I have to work that plan, and I have to evaluate that plan. And all the way down from Fort Lauderdale to Miami, I was evaluating that plan. I was looking at every single vulnerability I could find in that plan, and what decisions would I make if this happened or that happened. Building plan is second nature to us. For the firemen, there's a plan to go into a burning building. There's a plan to rescue somebody. You have a plan, you have protocols, but you evaluate it and adjust it. And making a plan gave me peace after my husband died. I didn't know what to do with my life. I was lost. But if I could build a plan, what was I going to do? And my plan was to go ahead and build that house in Florida, so I had a landing zone. But I knew my purpose was gone. My husband was my purpose for the retirement. And I needed to be here at Banner. I needed to build this security program, because nurses were getting hurt. I needed to make them stronger. I needed to make those officers, Banner security officers, stronger. I had a purpose. I knew what I could do to build it, and I knew what I could keep me whole, because without my mom and without my husband, I had no purpose. But I know, folks, I'm 60. I've been doing this 40 years, almost 40 years. I'm going to have to go. I'm getting old, and I'm getting tired, and there's new ideas out there. So I have built a plan now, and that plan has multiple options in it, because I got destroyed when I took the one option that I had, the one plan that my husband and I built together. It got destroyed, so I didn't know what to do. So now I have a plan, and I'm open to variable options, and I have a timeline, and I know what I'm going to do. And I'm so grateful that my husband pushed me into learning to make friends outside of law enforcement, because I work with people in healthcare now that don't think like you and I do, because they aren't first responders. The nurses are. They think a lot like us. But now I'm interacting with people that are like the normal community, because I realized that they're the normal ones. We in law enforcement, we in firefighters, we in corrections, we're not. we're a unique breed, and God bless us for being unique. And there's a need for us to be this way. But to be able to assimilate back into society, you got to build a plan. You've got to understand that we are different, and that when I see people now that are my friends, and I run and gun constantly, and I'm realizing that they may not get me the way that you get me. And I have to understand I need to keep these friends close because they're going to be my safety net when I'm out of this job. I have 500 officers working for me. I have a total of 1,000 people working for me right now, between nurses, officers, pilots. I know that this is all going to come to an end. So I'm learning to transition into that safety net where people get me and I get them more. It's important that I have a fulfilled life outside a banner. It's important that I have hobbies, that I have the, other interests. Being from Georgia, and you football fans know that SEC football is all about the University of Georgia being ranked #1 this year. Woo-hoo, and we won last year. I have a passion for sports. I'm developing that passion into making a plan to go travel and to look go to different sporting events. And my golf game, I can shoot in the 80s now, and on a really good day, I'm getting better. I've got girlfriends outside of law enforcement now. Not that my purpose is diminished at Banner. It is just I'm more fulfilled and I'm better at what I'm doing at Banner while I'm finishing my professional plan. I'm building a retirement plan that will fulfill me. And I'm working hard at that too. I'm putting as much passion into building that personal plan as my professional plan, because you know what? In a couple of years, I've earned that retirement. Just like you have, you're going to earn your retirement. You are going to deserve that enjoyment you get out of retirement. But if you don't have a plan, you're going to be like a friend of mine. My friend retired unexpectedly from law enforcement, not for medical reasons, much like my husband had the medical reasons and retired, big difference. This guy had to retire pretty quickly for certain reasons. And he was like, rock on. I'm going to sleep as late as I want. I'm going to work out. I'm going to play golf. I'm going to do all this stuff. As Dara said in the beginning, that worked for about the first 2 months. And what happened was he was good from when he woke up about 7 until about 1. And then from 1 to 5, he was like, what the heck? What am I going to do? And he would call his wife, who was out doing stuff. And he'd go, where are you? And she goes, I'm living my life. Where are you? And he goes, I need you to come home. I'm bored. She goes, I'm not your entertainment factor. And you know what? He started getting anxious because he didn't have a plan, because he retired so quickly, and he didn't have any buddies to play with, because you know what? His phone used to ring off the hook. And now that he's retired, he's not that guy anymore. And it's natural. You're not in the same circles anymore. You have different interests. They've moved on and you've moved on. And he's not being fed by those people calling him and gossiping about what's going on, or people asking for help. And you know what? He had to find another job. But you know what? It's a job that's easier for him, a job that he truly loves, and it fills that 1 to 5 for him. So don't be afraid to have to, you may not financially have to go back to work, but emotionally you might, because your families have spent a lot of time away from you, and they've built lives with you gone, much like we've seen in the military. And the families build a life because that's self-preservation. And now you plop back in the middle of it like my friend did. And he goes, okay, what are we going to do? And they're like, I don't know what you're talking about with this we. It's a you, because we have a life. We've been doing this life for 30 years without you, So what I'm telling you there is prepare your family for your retirement. Talk to them. Start building that connection and that plan with your family now. Don't wait until you retire to prepare your family, because it's not going to go well. My friend didn't, and his wife was like, dude, go get a job. You're annoying me. I've got a life. You don't want to be that guy. So build that plan. focus on your relationships to your family, your friends. Be that person that goes out of their comfort zone and hook up with that golf club with a bunch of women that you don't know how to communicate with because you don't bake and you don't have grandkids and you don't do all this stuff that they do. But you know what? When you get to know them and they get to know you, there is a common interest. You know, the part of the plan that you need to have is, understand that there's going to be an identity crisis. You're going to have to go through that, but it's easier when you plan for it. Know that you got to make a financial plan. And I know you've got somebody coming on after me to talk about that, but that's incredibly important because when my husband died, I freaked about money. I was like, oh my God, I'll never be able to retire. My financial guy, my brother-in-law, everybody's telling me you can retire, but it's just me now. And my salary would be fixed. And I need to make sure that it's really going to hold me up for the rest of my life. And a financial plan is going to help you do that. The other thing I want to suggest to you, and it helped me when I left DEA, make sure that you're doing everything you can now to make it a better place. Make where you work now better because you were there. Because they're not going to remember you one day. The cases that you made, the rescues that you made, the shootouts that you were in, you may be folklore about it. My husband was for a while, and they don't remember him anymore because the generations turned over, and that's natural and that's good. But just set up. Make sure the next generation behind you feed into them because it's important that you do the same thing. Talk to people like me that have retired or failed retirement. Either way you want to look at it. I still think I'm successful because I've got a pretty good thing going with helping people here, and I'm making a plan for the future. And make sure that you leave it better and feed into the people that are there for you. And also, make sure that you're prepared to take on another job. If you need that purpose and fulfillment, it's important that we're wired differently. Our hearts are different. Our adrenaline pushes are different, but we matter. We're important to this world, and you are that line between good and evil, and you deserve good things. And so my plea to you today is make a plan. Enjoy your career that you have now. I know when I came back up, when I first started at DEA, I know again, 1984, okay? I came on, the oldest person in DEA was my boss. He was 62. He was a real fossil, right? I told you I was 60, right? So I'm close to that. He had been on DEA forever. And here I was 21, and my retirement date in 1984, it was 2017. And I thought, oh my God, I'll never make it. That is space age. But it happens really quickly. You progress through those years really, really fast. And remember that you are making a difference in society, no matter how much gruff you take, no matter how many people tell you you're not good, no matter how many people in society try to dump on you. Know that there's a camaraderie here with all of us, that you do matter. You're making a difference, and you are that line between good and evil, and you deserve a positive retirement. And if you decide to go into that next job, make it one you love. If it's the starter at the golf course, God bless you. If it's, the driving around in a golf cart, acting like security at a retirement community, go for it. Just make sure you pay yourself back for all the sacrifices that you've made over your career, and make it a fun job that you truly enjoy, because you deserve that. And we have a really hard time accepting that. We do. We really have a hard time accepting praise and help, that we deserve something good. But that camaraderie that you have, you may break it with your friends when you get off the job, but it's never going to leave your heart. It's always going to be with you. You're going to remember those times. You're going to enjoy the difference that you made together, and they're always going to be there for you. And so be proud. Enjoy your time on the job right now. I know it's a tough time out there. It sucks. I get it. But know that you matter, and that if you plan correctly and you take care of yourself, you will fall forward into retirement, even if you mess it up 3 or 4 times and you're still working at it. It's me. Dara, I'll have you come back on in a couple of years and you can do this retirement talk as your therapy session. But I wanted to, we've got about 5 more minutes. And Dara, I wanted to see if there was anything else you wanted me to cover or any questions that I could answer.
Yeah, you have me cracking up over here, Beth. Thank you. This was really beneficial. You could see the comments here. I mean, so many people are saying that this wisdom and experience that you have is truly helpful. Real eye opener that people have responded to. I have questions for you because you know I always do.
You do, and I love answering your questions, Dara, always.
So here you go from being, top of the game to having that reality check of, okay, now you are nobody, you don't have the privileges and stuff anymore. That's something that I hear a lot of people struggling with. They're like, how do you go from being a chief of police or somebody of rank, being an officer or a firefighter, and then having that privilege, but now it was funny, and I'll give you a quick analogy to this. About 2 weeks ago, I called into a prison to see how you do a visitation for somebody in prison because I know somebody over there, and it was funny working in prison for so many years and so many different types of prisons. Being on the other end of the phone call and then getting the gruff talk from the CEOs and the social workers there. It was as you said, an eye opener. Because now I was nobody. They don't know my history or my past, So anyway, comment on that if you can there.
Dara, it's funny. During COVID, I had a similar experience to you. We were having a problem with a prisoner patient, and I needed to call the corrections facility and talk to them, right? And trying to see if we could navigate this just a little bit. The nurse had been having problems with them, so they had me call them. And on the other end, he goes, young lady, I don't know if you know anything about handling a prisoner or law enforcement, but let me teach you a thing or two. And I was like, oh my God, just rock on, buddy. And simultaneously, my dog had brought a bird into my house through the doggy door and let it go in my house. And so I'm trying to be really cool and be that boss on the phone and be tough to this guy to teach him, have a teaching moment that I'm not some little girl and I do know probably more than he does about it while I'm chasing this bird flying around in my house and be cool about that. So I do share your experience, but that is humbling, Dara. It is humbling. And my dad had a similar experience. He used to run a law firm and he left and he called back 2 weeks later and he said, hey, this is Bob Walther. I need to speak to and who are you? It was a new receptionist. She had no clue. But, that's important that we don't take ourselves too seriously, our rank. We have to be that confident person and in the inside. And it's not all about the rank, and I understand when I need to pull rank, I could, but when somebody doesn't know who I am, it's up to me to educate them nicely about my experience and that it's important that our entire identity is not wrapped up in what we do or the rank we have. It has to be who we are on the inside. And that carries the day, because I think I was sort of a little bit of a unicorn when I was in law enforcement, because I never lost a lot of that Southern heritage. And I had a delicate balance between being that leader that says, come on, follow me, and have people want to follow me, but still having that, softer side that I liked my husband leading the way. So I was a hybrid from being that and this wife over here without that authority. And I think that's important when you don't have that credential anymore or people don't know you. I can walk in a DEA office now and they're going, oh, you're that old sack, or who are you? I can't be offended by that because people moved on. When I was an agent and old bosses left, and when they came back, I was like, seriously, can't you get a life? So I just think it's my advice to you is and to others is, yeah, be proud of the rank you achieved, but don't let it become who you are, and know that not everybody knows that rank, but it's the way you carry yourself and the way you handle yourself is how you generate that rank or that respect. And it's whether you're in law enforcement or not. But it can be humbling when you're all that, if that's who you are, that if it becomes your identity, that's the problem.
You know, thanks, Beth. One of your phrases that I picked up from you is leading with humble confidence, right?
Yeah.
Would you say that that's where that comes from? Is years of experience, knowing that humility, but you're confident in your ability?
Yeah, I find that, yeah, and that became the slogan here at the Banner was humble confidence. I wanted my officers to walk with humble confidence because I found in here at Banner and throughout DEA, the ones that were overly aggressive were really insecure. They didn't want people to see behind the curtain, and they wanted to be aggressive so you didn't challenge them. They wanted to be out front. But if I could be humble and confident at the same time, I could carry the day. So yeah, humble confidence is the core of who I am.
Yeah, I think that that is a really important quality that you have, and I think it served you very well too into your different jobs post-retirement. One of the things that our people struggle with in public safety is having that bridge gap of they started early like you did, and then by 45, 47 years old, coming up towards 50, if you're lucky, they're retiring. And then they have to cover this gap of, you know, till 62 for some people would qualify for healthcare at that point. There are a lot of people that don't because they never paid into Social Security, etc., because of the pension system. Uh, you didn't have that issue, I don't think, at the DEA and federal government, right?
That's right.
But it's been a struggle for a lot of people here, and I wanted to bring it up because I'm sure that other places across the country also have similar struggles as well. And so we do find people trying to get back to work a lot quicker than than they would have. But I suppose just kind of piggybacking on what Beth was saying, I would like for people to prepare a little bit so they can take at least 6 months off. Because I think that you do need time to get that yuck off of you. You know, people don't realize that they carry the yuck with them coming out of the job. And they just rush right back into something else and they haven't really had a chance to process that stuff. How long were your gaps between employment?
I
Did
didn't
you?
have any.
No.
I stopped on Friday and started on Monday. You see, I'm a failure. I'm afraid, I was afraid, but I'm better now. But no, it is important to try to take a break and decompress. But I know that a good portion of my leaders now were leaders in local law enforcement, and they needed another job, but they had planned. They had planned for what the cost would be, and they knew what they needed to make in retirement, and they took a job accordingly, not to overwhelm them and get back into the same stress level. But they planned their finances so that they could. They knew what was in drop. They knew what their annuity payment was going to be every month. And they started socking away to prepare, but they knew they always wanted to do something, not just for the money, but for the purpose-driven life.
Mm-hmm. Chris commented here, it's hard to be thought, it's a hard thought being just a regular person, but I think that's something that a lot of people really struggle with.
Yeah, it is because, we get accustomed to being one off. One off means to us special, but you just have to look inside and learn that you're still going to be that special person. You're never going to be a commoner. You're never going to be just like them, because I saw in my husband's retirement, which, Vietnam combat vet, DEA, he still had this calmness about him. And I still knew every time I looked at him what he had done for a living. Your friends and family know what you did. You're always going to be special, and you're never going to be just like everybody else. But that's our great secret. We can walk in a crowd and we know what we can do to keep people safe. And we know that we will jump in when somebody needs it, but we don't have to anymore. And so we'll know, your friends know, the ones that you worked with knew. And we know that you're willing to risk your life today, even if you're retired 10 years from today. You're willing to risk your life to save somebody. You never lose that. You may lose that badge and that gun, but you will still have that purpose-driven life inside of you, and your willingness to take care of people. That never goes away.
Yeah, thanks, Beth. I had made a comment earlier on, that I feel like we look so much for the differences that we have between people in terms of civilians outside of public safety, or being a first responder, that we make excuses for why we don't connect with people. So we push people away. We don't want to engage with people, and uh, what is the key, or one of the keys to being able to get past that?
Looking for the differences, I think we should look for the commonality, instead of because we've always done that. We look at the world differently, us as first responders. We do. We're like sizing people up all the time. And we're like, do I really trust that person? Are they really telling me the truth? Or, I sit it with my back to the wall. And it was really funny when both my husband and I were there, we were both bagged for that side of the restaurant so that he could look at the door, I could, and he was a better shot than me. So I always gave way. But we need to look for some commonality, and when we look for that, when we're at two opposite ends, if you're here and I'm here, and the way we look at the world, we've got to try to come closer to the middle, because that way we can come to an agreement. That I see it differently than you do, but we're not so far away that we can't have some sort of understanding about the way you look at the world and the way I look at the world. We just have to evaluate, and that's what we're always going to do, and we're always going to question. We're always going to be suspect, because we're safety minded and we're security minded, and we're
Yeah.
always going to keep people safe.
So letting your guard down socially doesn't mean that you're letting your guard down with safety, right?
No, you never do. You never, it's in us. It's who we are. It's in our DNA, that we always have that. There's a personality test that my sister made me take, and I came out a 6. It's Enneagram, and that's safety. And Lord, you should see that thing. It's just like me. You're always looking this way and that way. It's who I am, whether I'm in DEA or I'm in healthcare security or I was at HIDA. It's never going away. And it's okay, because we're not losing who we are at the core, but we're just softening a tad bit on the exterior, but we're still that person. Because, a quick story, I know we're running out of time, but quick story for you. I was at the beach, and all of a sudden I saw commotion going on. And I used to be a pretty good swimmer in the day. And I saw 3 boys that were drowning. And these men had gone out there, and they were now struggling. It was like 3 men went out to try to get the 3 boys. And out of nowhere, without me even thinking, I snatched this boogie board from this little girl, and I swim out in the ocean that's got, big waves. That's why the boys were struggling. And I stick the boogie board, and I get the 3 boys in, and the men starts coming back, and one of the men kept dropping, and so we kept grabbing him so he wouldn't drown. And it took like a half hour to get back in, because there was an undertow. And I wasn't DEA that day. I was my husband's wife, and I was in a bathing suit reading a book, at Danielle Steele book, like all girls do, right on the beach. And it just came out of nowhere to go save those kids. And I pushed past people, and with this boogie board, and we got them all in. Now one man had problems because he had blue jeans on. So go figure, man, take your blue jeans off. But that shows you that even though I was not in my law enforcement mode, I was at the beach reading a book in a bathing suit, and I sprang to action. It's still in there no matter what we're doing, but I found commonality with everybody else on the beach that day reading my book.
That's awesome, Beth. On that note, I want to thank you very much for being part of the conference. You've kicked off the last 3 segments here. First on retirement. Ryan will hit on retirement next, and then I'll talk about retirement from the medical side of things, medical retirement stuff. But Beth, this was excellent. If you can, just feel free to stick around and go through the comments, and you could feel free to type in your chat box and respond to them.
Darla, final word, thank you so much. And all of you attending the conference, y'all are all heroes today. And when you retire, you never lose that. It's in your heart. It's in your DEA. And I'm so incredibly proud of you. And I love being a member of this fraternity with you. So thank you so much, Dar, for the opportunity.
Thank you, Beth. We'll see you soon.